It's another Tuesday. It's episode 8. We're in our 8th week of Effluvium for YouTube. And for this episode, I will be joined by panelists Ryan, Perfume Bonfire, and from our first episode, Alex the Perfume Temple will be returning to join us. And our special guest is Henna from the Canadianbeautyblog, Canadianbeauty.com, and she has her own YouTube channel. I have that linked in the description, and she is also on Instagram as well, so she'll be joining us. Before we get started tonight, just wanted to ask if you could buy me a coffee. Buy me 1, buy me 2, buy me 5, buy me plus if you want. And these funds will go towards developing more quality content in the future, including an upgrade for live streams through StreamYard, and also developing resources, doing giveaways, and much more. So buy me a coffee. That is at the link at www.buymeacoffee.com/Joseph COLBP right there. That's the link. And it's pretty easy to do. So if you are so inclined, please pitch in. And I like my coffee, hooked on the caffeine. So I see some folks have already joined. We are currently at 10. And hello, my friend. Thank you very much, handsome gentleman. Hello, Rachel. Hi. So I think we're going to kick things off pretty quickly here. And I am going to start with the 3 first impressions. So what I have for this week is, hello, Nikki, the following. I have Le Gallion, Special for Gentlemen, which was sent to me by a friend who was so kind as to send me a sample. I have a little bit of background on this one. I have an idea of what to expect, and I'll chat about that, pardon me, as I sample it. Hello, Mr. Clean. How are you doing? The next one that I have here was actually a sample that was included with an order that I made to Crystal Fragrance. That particular order I will be discussing later when we talk about our new discoveries, things we're sampling, etc. So I have no idea what this one is all about. It is from Arte Profumi, and it is called Bohemian. And the name struck me. Bohemian. I like fragrances that hint at that sort of stuff. So no idea what's in it. Don't know the notes breakdown. Going into it blindly. And third, courtesy of Anuj via Melissa Villanueva, I have this, which is Ming the Dynasty. Yes, Ming the Dynasty. And the name is just, it's like a Ming vase, or no, not quite, more like an urn. What do I know? I'm ignorant on these sorts of things. But, you know, the usual sort of like Orientalism taken to the nth degree. So Ming Dynasty comes in this. If you can see that. It's a lovely milk white mini. And that's my third one. And I've already heard some feedback regarding this one. I hope that I have it sitting right over here. Actually, there were some additional instructions that were included with it, which I will share later. And I'll leave those right here. Fernando, hi. Thank you for your continued support. Great to see you here. Manginosis, good evening to you as well. Hello, I don't want to butcher your name, Dusan. Please let me know if I am mispronouncing your name. Let me know the correct pronunciation. Ooh, Sevilla Lab is one of my favorite douche chauffeurs, for sure. I'm happy because The reactions from others were so amusing to me. I had to find out for myself. So Melissa was so kind to send it over to me. All right, so we'll get started with Le Gaillon with special for gentlemen. Get comfortable for this. And we'll be bringing in our guests at about 7:15, 7:20, depending on how much time this is. Hopefully I can run through this pretty quickly and get things started. So here's special for gentlemen. I will spray right here. Make sure the nozzle is aimed. Somewhat good aim. I knew pardon me, I knew I'd be a sucker for this. Ooh. This is a really great old style. Did that pick up on the mic? That little snap. This is a really great old style lavender fougere. And it's ambery. I already pick up benzoin in it as well. There's great citrus. So I'll let you know what I already am aware of with Special for Gentlemen. I was curious about it. I ran into it on Fragrantica, and it had been compared to Guerlain's Jicky and Monsieur de Monsieur, Mouchoir de Monsieur. I really screwed that name up. Mouchoir de Monsieur, which is literally translates into gentleman's handkerchief, which is one of my favorites. And I love Jicky, particularly the EDP version. I have the EDP version in a B bottle. And I was a little concerned that this would smell so similar to them that, I mean, I don't even know if I'm concerned. I mean, it's not like I had any stakes in it, but I was expecting it rather to be so similar to them that I would just shrug and say that, well, this is pretty, but not necessary. But I'm feeling this is kind of necessary. It's really beautiful. And it's really like a vivacious, effervescent sort of citrus as well. That's with the lavender so far. So I'm really excited to revisit this in an hour and then towards the end of tonight's, pardon me, live stream. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. Okay. So the next one is the one for which I know nothing. And this is the Arte Perfumi. Is anybody familiar with Arte Perfumi, the house? I will type it in the chat. If anybody can tell me if they're familiar with this house, and this is Bohemian. The name is Use that option to get that accent in there. Bohemian. And without further ado, don't know anything about the notes pyramid, don't know anything at all, never read ad copy, don't know anything. And I'm going to be spraying this to see what it's like on this hand. It's a bit of a feeble atomizer sample spray. Oh, okay. There's definitely a really sharp cis-3 hexanol. So I'm nerding out here, perfume terminology. So cis-3 hexanol is a very grassy, green aromachem. And that's what I'm picking up right away, is that. With some herbs, like, it's very herbal. There's like almost like now I'm picking up like fresh chopped basil, mint. And it's coming in hot too. It's like green right upside your head. Green, herbal, leafy. Which I can get behind usually, but it's kind of like a big question mark right now because this is almost like a little arresting. Like, what's the story here? It's not exactly what I expected for something named Bohemian. But then again, I probably was expecting something that was really ambery, resinous, patchouli, dense, you know, something that smelled like Nag Champa. I don't know. But this is definitely something very different from what I was expecting. Okay. All right, so we'll revisit that in about an hour. And then last but not least, Ming the Dynasty. Okay, Ming the Dynasty. And this is a little dabber. Look at this cute little, look at that. Okay. Down we go. This reminds me of like opening up old Avon bottles. Like you're in like a sort of like an antique shop or an estate sale. And they're selling like those, you know, it could be the original bottles that they're in or the myriad bottles that were shaped in all sorts of items known to man's creation, like grandfather clocks, stagecoaches, owls, animals. You know what I'm talking about. So, Philip, the name of the house, I haven't a clue. Maybe it's Dynasty since it's Ming the Dynasty. But that's all the information I have. It doesn't tell me who manufactured it or anything. Let's get this baby on. Put it on this wrist right here. Who was it who said they loved the way that it looks when somebody is applying from a dabber? I think it was actually Serge Lutens, and that's why he has the bell jars. Okay. It definitely is from a certain age, which people who know me well know that typically isn't an issue. There's definitely nothing at all that would be of interest to someone who likes modern fragrances here. And I think it came out in the early 80s, but this actually smells like it could have come out in like the 50s, maybe. It smells like it would be dated for the 80s. Wow, this is giving me sort of like, it kind of reminds me a little bit of L'air du Temps, but more ambery. Really powdery. I could see where this wouldn't appeal to people who would associate this kind of scent with somebody over the age of 75. Which to me, once again, like people who know me, I don't care. I don't do those ageist tropes where it smells like an old man, it smells like an old lady. But this definitely does smell like something from the distant past. Like nobody younger would necessarily wear this if they're more mainstream, if they're more concerned about, you know, being modern. I don't think it's that bad, but I could totally see where people would be put off by it. Like this is, this is not my jam. But it's just first impressions. It was just applied on my skin right now. I like it. This is actually the first time I think in the first impressions that I like all three. That I was like, there wasn't one where I was like, oh, this is atrocious from the first smell. So special for gentlemen is nice. It's definitely cleaner than Jicky and Mouchoir de Monsieur. There's no civet going on here at all. And then the Bohemian is intriguing to me. It's the Arte Perfumi. I'm guessing is more like an indie perfumer. And it's just the way that it's blended. It's not poorly blended, but there's definitely this sort of artisanal feel to it. Like there's some risk taking here where there isn't like, you know, a focus group or number crunchers or people in upper management saying like, yeah, this is not going to pass the muster. It's like, it's artisanal. And then Ming Dynasty kind of reminds me of like an old Avon so far. And I love Avons. So that's a whole other story. I could get into that. I could do a whole live stream on Avons. So the time is now 7:16 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to get started here by bringing in one of my regular panelists who has joined me several times since we started this series. Let's bring in Ryan. Hey.
Hello.
Hi, I can't hear you, and I'm not sure why. You can hear me, but I can't hear you. And
I'm talking. Are you not hearing me?
That's really strange. Hold on a second. It may be that I need to put in my earbuds, and I'm not hearing you for that reason. So, folks, just bear with me. I'm going to grab some earbuds, because that could be the problem. I need to be able to hear my guests. So, just a second. And we'll see if this resolves it. It might have, I think it is an audio thing on my end, but we'll sort this out. Okay, let's see if I can hear you this way. And we'll get things started. As long as everybody else can hear you, it seems like so far it is limited to me. So we'll get these on and see if you come out of the earbuds. Last time I couldn't see you, or it was one of the last times. And this time I can't hear, but we'll sort this out. Get this together. We have a tangle here too. I am excited to hear about everybody's test drives or current infatuations, fragrance infatuations. I love how, go figure, we're live and I have like a major tangle. So it's like taking us so much time. Hold on a second. Oh, that Ming Dynasty is now really flying off the skin. I feel like it could. It's like it reminds me of like Avon or something that like Elizabeth Arden would have released back in the day or something like that. Okay.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
I can hear you just fine, and you know what? Actually, also I can hear is my Spotify still playing, so we'll quickly turn that off. Okay, great. Glad I can hear you. Okay. Let's commence. Okay. So, how have you been?
Busy but good. Yeah, I'm coming off the run of a very busy 2 weeks, but I'm feeling good. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. And among the topics for this episode, we will be talking about some of the things that we've been currently sampling or assessing, or in my case, because I don't really have too many things like that, I'm just going to share the most recent acquisitions. That it's kind of like the next step. Like I was doing that, and then I went full bottle. So I'd be excited to hear some of yours. And then another thing, as suggested last week, we were doing it the other way around, where we were discussing notes that we came around to after initially disliking them. And now we're going to talk about notes that we initially liked, but we've kind of grown tired of or grown to kind of like start to dislike. So we'll do that as well. And then we'll have our usual freeform discussion next.
That's good.
I'm going to bring in Alex, who was so kind as to fill in last minute. Adam was not able to join us this evening. Alex, hi.
Hey.
Ooh, look at that.
Hello.
Hi, Ryan. Hi, JJ.
Hi. I'm loving the mustache. I'm loving the look.
Oh, yeah. It's every November I grow a mustache for Movember. It's a foundation. I don't know if you know it. It's a foundation that raises funds for masculine cancers. And in recent years also, it's for awareness, for mental health, suicide prevention. So since I lost my dad to a prostate cancer, this is very close to my heart, and I always support them in November.
That's really nice. And thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Very important stuff. So, and it looks great on you. So,
oh, thank you. I don't think I look very good, but I mean, there's something more important than that.
No, and there's much more meaning behind it than merely, merely for the vanity of it all, which just makes it even more special. So, wonderful to have you back. It's always a pleasure. And last but not least, I'm going to be bringing in our very special guest, Henna. And we go way back now. She was one of my guests during the first run of Effluvium when I was on Instagram. Yeah. So I'm happy to have her join us here. So Henna, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Very nice. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So I'm finally getting the hang of keeping up with the chat here. For like the first few episodes, like I'd have to, I'd be like 10, 15 minutes behind, but I'm starting to get the hang of it. Yeah. Classy panel. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And it's so great to see you joining us as well, Niall. Okay. All right. So why don't we get things started? So we were going to talk about, this was actually a suggestion for a topic from Henna herself of things that we've been sampling lately, things that have been getting our attention. And Henna, I think it would be great if you could get us started with some things.
Sure. Yeah. Because I feel like I post about what I'm sampling a lot just because I want people to see that it's not just bottles out of nowhere kind of thing, right? Yeah. So and Alex, you were telling me about these too. I've been sampling these, the violet perfumes. I don't know. Have you guys, Alex, have you smelled all of them? Or just some?
Not already all of them, but quite a few.
Yeah, so it seems to be an older house that was then bought over by 3 friends who had graduated from perfumery school. And so what they're doing is they're either revamping some of the earlier launches and then also adding to the line, I guess. And I think all the perfumes, well, the ones that I looked up were done by Natalie Lorson. So they're actually well done, I think. I found quite a few that I like. But yeah, just interesting. This brand totally was not on my radar at all. And then someone sent me the samples and I was like, oh my God, these are really good. So yeah. And Alex, I haven't tried the one that you recommended. You recommended Pooper. Pooper Datum.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now that's Purple Autumn, right? Poop Datum, Purple Autumn.
No, it's autumn powder.
Powder. Poudre. Oh, yeah. I thought powder was poudre. Poudre. So there's poudre and poudre.
I don't know.
I think it's Purple Autumn.
Okay.
Purple would make sense because it's also supposed to be like with violet leaf. So maybe like a reference in that. Yes. Violet leaf, plum.
Kind of suggesting that.
You were saying that this was really reminiscent of what? Vintage perfumes, I think you said.
Yeah, I think it has it's hinting at old Guerlains from the early 20th century, like Après l'Ondée or L'Heure Bleue.
Yeah, and I think that's the violet and
the iris.
There's definitely a dampness that comes through.
And am I correct that this was a house that was resurrected, right? It was a house from the early early 20th century, kind of like Alyssa Le Galland, and what was the other one? Lubin is another one that was resurrected. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I've sampled a couple of them and I thought they were quite nice. I should probably revisit them. Sometimes what happens is with samples, I'll do the first impression. I'll be like, this is nice. I'll I'll set it aside for later, and then it's months that go by, and I do have them in a box somewhere. But I had a good impression of the ones that I tried. So
I mean, the thing that I'm finding with them is that none of them seem that unique right now.
yeah,
Like I need to wear them more. I only opened this package over the weekend, but immediately, if this reminds me of Après Londe, I don't have it in my collection, but I know JJ, you do. So I could see how if this is what it reminds you of, you kind of don't want to have another one, right?
Right. It's kind of like the special for gentlemen that I was just sampling earlier. It's like I was wondering if it would be that case where it's like, well, I already have Mouchoir de Monsieur and Jicky, and do I need to have another version of it? But that one actually is different enough. But I think that was what I recall about that particular violet, was that it's like I've already kind of covered those bases a few times between having like Après Londe. But the quality is there. Like they are beautiful. Yeah.
And the price is good too. I think they're like, I saw 130 euros for a full bottle, which is, probably more affordable than getting something vintage.
Right. They're certainly more affordable than, maybe trying to get an older bottle of Après Londe.
Definitely.
That's like almost impossible to get an older bottle of Après Londe, right?
Yeah.
I had a Google alert set up for that for a while, and then I just like deleted it. It's like, I'm never going to be able to afford it. And I don't know if I just don't know if I want to wait. Like there's other things I want,
Right. And even like the B bottle is astronomical.
I spotted a B bottle on eBay recently for 700.
Oh my God.
I mean, I'm happy with my modern release.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, I think a lot of that it derives from the discussion of the shell of its former self. Isn't it the same as it used to be? So you have to get an older version, and so on and so forth. And I have like the most recent Bell B bottle before they moved into the new bottles, and that's.
Yes, beautiful. But JJ, who was there to smell the original release of Après Londe and is still now around here to tell us?
Very few people, if that. And if they are smelling the original from 1906, they are smelling a fragrance that was made in 1906. So
exactly.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Vintages that are that age, it's a very specific experience that you have to put into context exactly how much has happened to those ionones in the course of 100 years. So.
Unless you smell it at the Osmotech in Versailles, where they are kept in perfect condition, refrigerated,
like Osmotech.
Humidity control. Okay, but that's the only possibility to smell a fragrance like it was originally released.
Right.
Well, what about have you guys ever seen, on Perfume Shrine and all those sites, they can sell you can buy 1 ml of whatever vintage of Mitsuko you want, or have you ever done that? Because that's a way that people can get it.
Yeah, I mean, I have had. I bought a few things there. Certainly nothing that old. I think some of the oldest samples that I bought were from the 50s and 60s.
Okay.
And even there, I know I'm smelling a vintage that is, 50, 60 plus years old, but there's some beautiful things that are still there that really suggest how it was from that time, considering the liberties of the perfumer to use things like musketones, by the spoonful. Like a lot of musketones and nitro musks and all of these beautiful things. But the thing that I always notice is, for certain compounds that inevitably degrade, even if they were stored in the best possible conditions, if they're that old, I can tell that it's not the same. Like I can tell immediately from the top notes, because the everything from the base is just like pushed forward right away. It's like woof. It's like they've become the top notes more so than the original top notes. So yeah, but it's not to poo-poo on vintage enthusiasm. I think coming into it with that understanding and accepting that reality that you can enjoy it for what it is in this current space and time, that you know that you can't judge it you can't judge it fully in comparison to something that was made recently. It's just it's impossible to do that. There's a lot of it you have to kind of fill in the blanks because some of it is just missing.
And the consensus on Mitsuko is that one's actually come around. Like there was a weird period where it wasn't good, but particularly relative to, but like the more recent formulations in the last, 3 years or so have been excellent, even by the vintage collector standards, which is nice.
Yeah, Mitsuko, I did do some comparisons. Like a friend of mine did send me some samples of like mid 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, and like more recent Mitsuko. And like the more recent Mitsuko is so good compared to every other version. So I was like, yeah, I mean, and I've done that with other fragrances too. Like take for example, Pour un homme de Caron, and I've mentioned this before. If you were to sample like an 80s or 90s version, I've discussed this at one point, I think actually in one of my videos, like they made that modern for the 80s, like late 70s or 80s, to make it muskier. And that wasn't the original composition. No. So if you're getting bottles from the 80s to the mid 90s, they smell like muskier and a little bit more animalic. And it was actually a return to form. So it's amusing when people say like, Pour un homme de Caron was so much better when it was the 80s and 90s. Well, that was a certain era for that fragrance. Just like there's eras for so many of these, they've been reformulated time and time and again from decade to decade and so on and so forth. So
I think people like to romanticize the past too, right?
Oh yeah,
that's totally. Also part of the fun. So even with something like Mitsuko, like I think for a certain kind of person, it's just fun to have them all lined up and smell them and compare them and see, right? Even though like you might never even want to wear them. Like maybe that's not how you want to smell on a daily basis.
Right.
I think that Pour un homme de Caron of the 80s or the 90s smell a little muskier is the understatement of the year, JJ. It stinks like nothing else. It's really musky, heavily musky.
It's super musky. It almost is like bullying the lavender. Yeah, it's like it's competing with the lavender. I think it's kind of cool. I like it, but I consider it specifically like Pour un homme de Caron 80s version, like not original, not current. It's of its specific time. And I would gather when we're thinking in terms of things like these older Carons and Guerlains, they went through their modernizations in certain decades, and they had specific formulations that were shaped based on the tastes of the time. And there'd be formulation after formulation afterward. It wasn't some sort of like mythical original fragrance that had been the same for decades and decades, and then all of a sudden, when Ifra came around, it was destroyed. These reformulations were often done to suit the tastes of younger people, so they can continue to sell the fragrance. So yeah. I mean,
the goal is always to make money, right?
That's what it really has to do with, honestly, that lest we forget that. So do you think that perhaps, Henna, at some point you may invest in a full bottle of anything from Violet, aka Violet?
I might. I don't know. I still have to smell them. I wore Sketch a lot over the weekend. I liked that. I wore Un Air d'Apogée over the weekend, and I really liked that a lot too. So I
think
need
that
to
was
wear
my
this
favorite.
one more.
Yeah.
That was the one I
Yeah.
wanted to try. That's the one that has the tobacco note in it, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
so it
it's,
has tobacco, hay, I think immortelle, and honey. Yeah, so I was kind of put off by the honey note initially, but the honey doesn't last very long, so that was good. And I know you posted about, what did you post about today? Ombre Narguilé by Hermes. So that honey note gets so sweet on me, and I couldn't wear that for a long time, but this honey note doesn't last very long. So, which is interesting because a lot of times sweeter notes seem to just intensify as time goes on.
My
Hey,
wife
Pep.
is the same way. Anything I wear that is sweet wears okay on me, but on her it just turns into like sweet Armageddon on her skin.
Yeah.
Well,
So
if
I
you-
don't know. I'll see. It's early days, I would say.
If you ever smelled Versace Men, that discontinued one, Un Air d'Apogée, it's very similar.
Oh, then
Mhm.
you have my curiosity for sure, because I like Versace Man.
Yeah, it's quite similar, and that's good news because I mean that those bottles now are fetching a pretty penny on the vintage market. I'm lucky to have one, but I mean I bought it just 3 or 4 years ago for I think 40 euros or so. Now they're I've seen one for over 100. So probably Un Air d'Apogée is also a better investment.
Yeah.
Philip, what do I think of the current? We'll get the opinion from everyone if they can share an opinion. The current Shalimar EDP is spectacular. It's wonderful. I mean, I've tried older samples, and I felt like there was no reason to have to get a vintage. And that bergamot and the top notes. It's been really well preserved. I'll put that in quotes because what does that really mean? Preservation, preservation of what? Because there was like we were saying, inevitably these reformulations needed to be made over time, but it's beautiful, and I can pick up like a lot of those dense resins, the Apopanax, the civet accord in it is wonderful too. Obviously, we're not dealing with real civet here, so it must be a really wonderful accord of civetone, lactoscatone, a few of these different things that when put together, they approximate what civet is like. And I'll tell you, when it's done well, you really can't tell the difference between, say, that and civet diluted in alcohol. So on every point, I think it's great. And Ryan, it looks like you agree on that.
I think that Shalimar Eau de Parfum now is spectacular. I mean, it's really like when you think of the flagship Guerlains, it's Shalimar and Mitsuko, and I feel like Terry Vassar has like bent over backwards to keep investing in both of those and keep those in good shape over time. I'm more of an eau de toilette guy when it comes to Shalimar myself. I like it a little bit lighter, a little bit more aromatic, a little bit more driven by that opening bergamot. But I think the eau de parfum is excellent. It's really a flawless perfume.
Oh, speaking of though, the special for gentlemen, I gotta tell you, I am falling in love with it. Oh, I'm gonna get myself in so much trouble, but I gotta find myself a bottle that's cheap enough because Le Gallion's kind of expensive too. It's beautiful. Have you smelled it, Alex? Special for gentlemen by Le Gallion?
No, they had a stand in Aix-en this year, but it was overcrowded, and I just sampled two, the vetiver and another one which I do whip.
Yeah, whip is an
and I was quite underwhelmed by. I had great expectation from Le Gallion, but They were not what I was expecting. They were pretty common, pretty straightforward fragrances. Nothing wrong with them, but expected something more, a spark that made them different. Maybe I had the wrong expectation. I mean, they are well-made fragrances. This year, maybe I will try a special for gentlemen.
Yeah, you might change your mind just for that one. I know with Le Gallienne, it seems like a lot of them, just from what I've read, just conjecture, that they're kind of like also rans. They're kind of like, this is this version of that, so on and so forth.
Yeah,
and it's not really worth it.
Also, you know, at an expo, it's difficult because it's always crowded. You're always in a hurry. You have just a blotter. You can't test on skin because then it will be everything confused because you spray 20 or 30 fragrances. And so it's better if I order some samples from them and test them easily and quietly at home. It will be a better. I will have a better idea for sure. I may change my mind.
Henna, I wanted to ask you: are you a fan of Shalimar?
No.
No. Okay. So we won't bug you with your opinion of Shalimar.
Don't ask me. I don't like it.
No, I know you love Samsara though. You're a Samsara
I love
fan.
Samsara.
Yeah.
I love L'Heure Bleue.
Me too.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't stand it. And it's so crazy because growing up, my mom would always be like, Shalimar, like get Shalimar. And I was like, I can't. It's too much.
Yeah. No, it's understandable. It can't be for everyone. And they always say that you're either like, I mean, even though I can't choose between the two, people often say like you're either a Mitsuko person or a Shalimar person, but
where they say you're a L'Heure Bleue person or a Shalimar person.
Oh, there's that. Yeah, there's that too. Yeah, I love them all.
Yeah. I don't vibe with L'Heure Bleue.
I love L'Heure Bleue. Love it.
Oh.
Or Golden. I don't do Golden Weed.
No, that trio is among my favorites. L'Heure Bleue, Golden Weed, Après Londe. I see them as a triad of melancholy.
Yeah. They each have it's just different facets of that mood. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, starting from L'Heure Bleue, which is I think the coldest, the saddest one, going through Après Londe, which is still cold, somehow melancholic, but you're starting to see the sun. And then Vol de Nuit is the brightest, probably the greenest one, the happiest one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has the most sunlight in it, I would say. Yeah, totally. With Après Londe, I feel like it's just like after the rain and it's still cloudy, and L'Heure Bleue is that blue hour. It's like crepuscular. It's a very much an evening kind of vibe. So which one would you choose, Vol de Nuit or L'Heure Bleue?
I choose L'Heure Bleue, but
I really do love both. But if faced with having to choose, it would be L'Heure Bleue. Yeah, for sure. So, Henna, did you want to share some other samplings as of late, and then afterwards we'll move on to one of the fellas here.
What else I really liked is this vintage version of Dior Essence. So Jane Daly sent me a little bit, and I think her bottle's from the 70s, I think. I want to say it's from the 70s. And I really liked it. And then I tried looking up bottles, and I don't know, I just like wasn't getting a sense of what to buy. So then I stopped wearing it altogether. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. I mean, I just like Chypres in general. And yeah, this is still really good.
I love the texture of it. There's something so unique about its texture. I did like a review of it pretty recently, I think, of the bottle that I have, and
So what year is your bottle from?
Oh God, I think my bottle's probably from like the mid 80s to late 80s because it has like. Hold on a second, I'll grab the bottle again. Talk amongst yourselves.
Perfect.
And I think, if I remember correctly, Anuj has some vintage Dior's full bottles, probably even Dior Essence. You should check Enchanté Parfums in Toronto.
I should, right? I should ask him.
Yeah.
So this is the one that I have, and I don't know why Christian Dior did not invest in better quality caps. Like this is, if I squeeze this,
I was waiting on one of those bottles last week, and then I lost the bid. But that's nice to know that I was on the right track.
I have to get used to actually using some of these options so I can put myself in full view. I always forget that all these options are here.
I have always thought those caps were ugly as
it's like the bottles are nice, but the cap is like, meh. It's like so like plasticky.
It's like the Osabaz bottles that have the plasticky top. I'm just like, oh.
All of the Christian Dior bottles from like the 80s like have these really flimsy caps.
Yeah, I remember my mom had probably were bottles from the 70s. They have the the label on the lower part with the houndstooth pattern.
Yeah.
Probably they were from the 70s, but they were nice bottles, really nice bottles. Simple, but good looking, stylish.
Yeah, and I think so. The bottle that this came from was a travel spray. So one of those, long cylinders, and it was like in the blue. So
yeah.
But that one I saw on eBay, and it was over $200 for just a travel spray.
Oh God, yeah.
The vintage market is crazy right now for the in-demand stuff.
Yeah, it sure is. Like prices are skyrocketing for so many things. Like things that I picked up just 2 years ago, and I was saying, recently, like you can still get this for under $30, and people are like, "Oh no, you can't." Like it's going for like $200 for X. Like it's changed so much. The demand, it fluctuates too. Like there will be like this whole wave where something is so crazy expensive, and then it will fall out of fashion, and then you can get a bottle cheap again. I think it's just a matter of being like really patient and just not getting too attached of getting one anytime soon, unless you want to shell out the dough.
Yeah.
You will buy Baccarat Rouge at discounters in 2 years.
Baccarat.
I will never buy Baccarat Rouge, I must say.
Yeah, I don't know.
Someone will. Many years from now,
there will be a point where people will look back very fondly, as you said, Henna. That romanticizing of like when I was, in my 20s during my salad days, and I would, be, I don't know where I'm going with that. Like, my escapades, I would be wearing that at, when I was courting people or something.
This was my club scent.
Right. It was like, it takes me back to those meries. And
and now it's a shadow of itself.
It's a shadow of its former self because they IFRA put restrictions on Embroxin.
Formulation Baccarat Rouge. It's just so good.
We'll do like batch codes. Like the formulation in 2014 was when it was at its zenith. Was it even around then? How recently did it? I don't even know.
I think it might be.
I don't remember exactly which year it hit, but obviously,
Well, it might go the way of Insolence. The way that Guerlain Insolence went, that the reformulation is actually better than the original. They toned it down because it was really too powerful, too cloying. When you mix sweetness with powderiness, both very, very strong, it becomes something barely tolerable.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
Margie, hey, I want to say hi to Margie. I'm going to do my romper room. Margie and Rudy. Oh, and Lagonda. Hello. Everybody's saying hello to everyone. So why don't we move on to Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. Ryan, some of your recent samplings.
So the one that I sampled recently, it was a revisitation, but a pleasant one, was L'Artisan à l'Oud, which I hadn't tried in a long time, and kind of came back to because I got a sample from somebody and I was like, this is amazing. It's just such a fabulous fragrance. You know, you kind of get burnt out on the oud stuff, and then you go back to that, which was one of the really earlier oud fragrances from a prominent niche house to do anything. And it's just so delicate and complex in ways that were very thrilling to me. So tempted by that one. I don't know. Do we all like that one? I think that's a lovely fragrance. Yeah.
And it's great. It's great. And it has this wonderful dried fruits and dates and, you know, unctuous. It's just something so lovely about that. And it contrasts with just a little bit of animalic. It's not too animalic, but just a little smidgen of it. It's really nice. It's a great Bertrand Duchefort, I think, worked on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that one still in production?
I think it is in the green bottles.
It's hard to get at the moment. I wonder if there's a supply chain issue or if they discontinued it, because it's not. It used to be around pretty readily, and now I'm not seeing it as much when I went to go looking around for it. I love it. I would say it is fairly animalic on me, but my skin tends to amplify anything that has like a cumin spice note in it. Portions. But as far as my wife was concerned, she was like, you smell animalic, like in a good way. So that was comforting. But I wouldn't wear it. I wouldn't wear it in most polite society the way it came off on my skin. But I was enjoying it a lot. Another one that I was sampling recently, Je vois les jus sont faits.
Another good one.
Which is kind of up my alley. You know, boozy tobacco fragrances are something I go to a lot. I thought that was very beautifully done. Kind of nice restraint there. It wasn't a very loud screamer fragrance, but very nicely done. Less likely to buy a bottle of that than Alud, because I just have so many things that are kind of in that tobacco-y space. But I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's been anything else that I've been sampling lately. I mean, I not particularly. I mean, I have some stuff I bought recently that I had sampled much in the past. I kind of like you. I tend to sample things and then like I'll forget about them for 6 months to like 18 months, and then one day I'll just be like, hey, I kind of miss that, and we'll try it out again, and then maybe you snag a bottle if it's still resonating at that point in time. But it doesn't. I very rarely sample something and immediately launch into a purchase.
I do enjoy Le Jus Sont Faits. Did I say that name right? I feel like I
don't know if I said it right.
Le Jus Sont Faits. I think that's what. So I have a bottle of it, and I think it's lovely, and I think it's one of the rare examples of where I can enjoy a boozy scent because it is paired with the tobacco, and you know there is the immortelle and all that sort of stuff, and that's as far as I go with boozy scents. But there's so many other versions of that. Like that's the last one I would have a bottle of. Like there's so many, like so many of these niche houses have their version of it. And I've smelled so many of them. And I don't think that I don't know. It's like one of those that I'm kind of feeling like that whole sort of style is going to getting played out now.
It is.
Yeah. But I think that one's, I love that one though. That's the only one I have from that house. I think anything else that I've sampled from Javoy is nice, but it's just not enough for me to feel like, it's like just what I mentioned earlier, like I have my bases covered. Like it's like your version of incense is nice, but I already have one that fulfills me, and so on and so forth.
So all I can smell from what I've sprayed is Compliment from Violet Paris, because I saw that Rachel said that Compliment was her favorite.
Yeah.
And I'm like sitting here, I'm like, what does this remind me of? What, it smells like Carnal Flower. Like that's right. So I have Carnal Flower, and then the other one is what's the Serge Lutens one?
Tuberose Criminal, or
yeah, that one, Tuberose Criminal, and it reminds me of that too because it's so minty. So then it's like, well, and both of those are in production, but I think more expensive. But yeah, it reminds, I mean, it's great. I love both of those. That's why I have them both. But do I need a third? I probably need a third.
It speaks to that whole phenomenon as frag heads, where it's like we just circle back to the same kind of sense, and it's like, how different is this one where it delivers an experience that's unmatched? And the more that you explore and sample, you start to come around to kind of a lot of the same ideas and tropes and styles. And it's like, you just decide which ones are the ones that resonate with you the most. And that's an important part of, say, like when you realize like, wow, my collection's gotten out of control. God knows mine has, where you take inventory and you're like, do I really need 18, of this type of fragrance? Like, and you just take inventory of it. So yeah, I mean, that's a smart way of doing it.
I mean, this might be a good one to have like on hand so you can wear it daily without spending a lot of money, right?
That's true. So you can just spray with abandon and not worry about how much
that's what you wanted to do.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point too. So it's like all these things that you take in consideration, like, affordability. That's the big thing too. Like, are you going to be able to wear it as often as you'd like and not have to shell out money within like 2 or 3 months? For sure. So Rachel asked, what are the panel's favorite tobacco frags? I'm going to sit this one out, Rachel, because I did do recently my video on my top 10 tobacco frags. But for everyone else who has favorites, please share your favorites.
I'll go first because tobacco is my favorite note. Tobacco is my favorite note. So a big chunk of my collection is dedicated to that. So some of these overlap with JJ's favorites a little bit too.
I'll put my thumbs up for each one that overlaps.
Aqua di Cuba, Santa Maria Novella.
Yes.
Spectacular, like honey floral tobacco experience. Not super animalic honey, but very kind of like, it's a strong fragrance. It's a powerhouse fragrance. It'll choke you out if you overapply it. But it is very beautiful, very aromatic. I love Villoresi Atmanzaman, another favorite. Kind of like, I think about it as like a country house tobacco. It's got like a nice leather. I'm scrolling here through my collection. Bois d'Ambry by Eau d'Italie.
Because I directed you to where you could get a bottle of that because the supplies are running short now because it's been discontinued. Yeah, that one's wonderful.
And it is spectacular. That one is absolutely spectacular. Very unique, has a kind of like vinegary quality to it that's very unusual in fragrances, and I think is a little polarizing, but is just absolutely sensational. Oh man, like there are just so many. The one I'm wearing right now, it probably wouldn't fall exactly in my top 10, but as far as recent niche offerings, Les Indomptables Vanille Havane is very lovely. Has a lovely, like, rich animalic tobacco with sort of like a very earthy vanilla bean kind of experience that's unusual in its level of depth for something that is vanilla tobacco. It's not really like, it's not the Tonka tobacco of Tobacco Vanille or something like that.
Right. It's kind of like a true tobacco vanille versus Tom Ford's vanille with some suggestion of tobacco that's really Tonka.
And then I'll mention one last one, and because I could go on and on. Carter Barcelona Sandor 70s, I think
I
is
still need to try that
lovely. It's predominantly a lot of leather in that fragrance. There's a Spanish leather accord and a suede accord dueling it out with a lovely tobacco, but it is an absolutely gorgeous fragrance.
Henna, do you have some favorites for tobacco, or are there some?
I think I do. I don't really have any tobacco perfumes in my collection.
Wait, I thought for some reason I thought you had Chergui. Do you have Chergui? You don't.
I have a sample of it, and I enjoy it. I do like that one a lot.
Yeah, but that to me is just as much like a hay fragrance as it is tobacco. It's Alex, how about you?
Yes, as I discussed earlier today with Ryan on Instagram, I like my tobacco totally unsweetened. Probably the only exception is a Chergui, which has a touch of warmth rather than sweetness. I like tobacco wood from Tom Ford, Aramis Habana. Rogue Tabac Vert is another great fragrance, and Atelier des Ors Bois Sicard, which is
smoky.
Yeah, exactly. It smells like a barbecue. It could be considered a masculine gourmand. And also something in that vein is Hyde by I always forget.
Hiram Green.
Hiram Green. That's another good smoky fragrance.
Very nice. Good choices. Ryan, so you shared one of your current fragrances that you're pondering. How about some others
that I'm pondering?
Pondering like, I think I might like this. I might like this a lot.
I mean, there's one. This was weird because I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but because I don't really think so. Apologies to anyone in the audience who likes this house a lot, but I've never really connected emotionally with a lot of things this house has produced. But Tiziana Terenzi's Rose Gold Oud, I was kind of like spurred off of after trying Al Oud, which has rose in it, but is not like a rose oud fragrance in the stereotypical like oud satin mood kind of like Oud Ispahan like genre, particularly kind of like something like I want the best ever version of a rose oud, and there's too many of them. I can't figure out which one is the really good one. But this was actually a particularly good version of that. It has some lovely fur in the base, adding a green touch.
Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened there. Like, hi. Sorry about that.
But I thought that was actually rather nice. So kudos to Tiziana Terenzi for producing a fairly well done version of a rose oud. At least as well done as I think I would find, unless I really dug into the Middle Eastern houses. I think you can find some really interesting stuff in that profile over there.
Right.
I feel like that's a house that kind of gets a bad rap for having, I don't know, some things that are not entirely unique or original. So that's surprising to hear you say that.
Yeah, they do have some stuff that is pretty close to other stuff, and then so they have a few things. There is one other that I've had that I would like. It's not like rush out and sample this, folks, but it is pretty nice. They have a fragrance called Ecstasy, which is kind of like a rose with a very crisp pine and like a frankincense incense. So it's kind of like walking through the woods and smelling like the smoke drifting from like a church. It's kind of a very nice light wear, and is kind of nice. But in general, I wouldn't go out of your way to try that house. But like any house that releases stuff like by the dozens, something's bound to be good, I think. Like I don't like Byredo, but I'm sure if I tried enough Byredo fragrances, I'm going to find something that I thought was pretty good. I don't, like.
And sometimes it's just made for that customer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a certain customer or age group that they're trying to appeal to, and so it works for them.
Right. And I think it has very modern dry downs as well. Like which I have a tough time with predictable dry downs. I've mentioned this before. We've talked about it before on here. And I think the problem that I've had with just trying a lot of the Tiziana Terenzi is it's just another example of one of those houses where it seems really promising, but then like a few hours in, it's like, oh, this is what's left behind. Just like those sort of hackneyed bases that have like a lot of woody ambers and timber silk and isoe super just kind of like dried into that, and it's like it's almost like all of what seemed to be the spirit of the fragrance has just been kind of stripped away on the skin, and that's what's left behind, which is what I really particularly felt when I sampled Laudanum Nero, which is people love Laudanum Nero, and
I found that revolting. I found that.
Tell us how you really feel.
That fragrance is one of there are very few that I have visceral reactions to, and I thought I would like it. I like boozy notes in fragrance, so I was like, okay, this probably is going to be something that I think is all right.
Right.
And I thought that was just the most revolting, nasty thing that I'd smelled in quite some time.
Yeah.
But I would say the dry down of Rose Gold Oud by Tiziana Terenzi, the dry down is actually quite nice. If anything, it got better for me as it got down to the base.
Good. Yeah. Because which is the opposite from my experience with Laudanum Nero. It already was questionable, and then it got scarier and scarier until I had to forcefully scrub it off with a rubbing alcohol and take a long shower. I'm sure all of you have experienced that with a fragrance where it's just you want that off of your skin immediately. And that's how I felt with that one. I did want to try ecstasy though, because I love coniferous and incensey scents, but
you would like it because the pine note is very clear in the way that it like comes through on like a cold day, like when it cuts through the cold, and it's very like there's not a lot clouding it. So like a lot of fragrances use pine, but you kind of get it mixed in with a lot of other things. Like you can think of reference pine fragrances like the Serge Lutens Fille on the Guy and things like that. They're kind of can be very dense, and it cuts through like almost like it's being carried through on like cool air. In a way that is very pleasant to me. I love pine notes.
It's actually one of my favorite notes, and I find that a lot of people, it's one of the notes that they steer clear from. Whatever associations, but I love it. Did you have any others, Ryan, that have been in current rotation, test driving, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, there was a bit of time not long ago where I love the work of Rodrigo Flores Roux. I think he's generally a very capable and interesting perfumer, especially since he loves to play with vintage perfume styles and kind of work them into modern creations in interesting ways. And so he did a lot of work for Carner Barcelona, some of which I think is just okay, and some of which I think is very good. Sandor 70s, which I mentioned before, I think is the best of his work for that house. But he also did one called Black Calamus, or how do you say that?
Calamus, Black Calamus, yes.
Black Calamus, which is an oud scent, but is very unique and kind of herbal and dry and warm, and again another fragrance that gets very nice as it dries down. You get to a very lovely base, regardless of whatever he's using for the oud accord is very nice and rounded, and not the typical harsh woody amber nightmare. So that I actually think is a stunning fragrance. And actually, considering what you can get it for from discounters right now, every time I kind of like, I briefly look online and I'm like, well, I'm kind of tempted. And then part of me is like, well, would I wear it as much as I think I would? Probably not, but it's a lovely, lovely fragrance. And then one fragrance I did sample recently. So while we're talking about that, I don't want to get, but I did try. I got a decant of the long discontinued Tom Ford Japon Noir, which
oh wow,
which people hype, and I panned. So like this is my time to pan this fragrance a little bit, which is it's Tom Ford likes to remake a lot of classic fragrances with his
oh yeah, definitely.
Right? And this is his remake of Obsession for Men. And I would find a vintage bottle of Obsession for Men much more interesting than Japon Noir. So, and you can get it for much cheaper. A bottle of Japon Noir is going for what, $800 now. So get a vintage Obsession in your set.
Right, which will set you back not even a tenth the amount. Rachel asks, what is Buddha wood? On the same tree that grows Buddha's hand. So Buddha's hand actually is a modified citron, so that the citrus tree. So Buddha wood is a different tree. I think it is Rimophila Mitchelli or something. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like a really aged sandalwood. It's like I have some of it. It's like this deep brown viscous oil. It's kind of musky. It's actually, I think I recall it was like called false sandalwood because of its similarities, but it's a really cool smell to it. It kind of smells like this slightly rubbery, musky, incensey kind of wood. It's really unique stuff. I recall trying something out recently that had it in its base, and it wasn't until like an hour or two in that you could kind of pick up on it. But it's really interesting stuff. It's only been we've only been starting to see it really being used in niche perfumery recently. It was never really a part of the perfumer's palette until the past 10 years or so. But it's been used in rituals and medicine and aromatherapy, I think, for a lot longer. So,
no, I'm raising my hand to say hello to someone in the chat.
Oh, is there something to be drawn to my attention? Because I can take care of something if there's something.
No, it's no problem. He's just asking if I'm sure if I am myself.
I have to ask that of myself every
yes, the questions become more and more intelligent in these chats every day.
I really encourage intelligent discourse on my Tuesday evening live streams. So whoever it is, the all-seeing eye is here. We have a big cyclops here who's watching on you. So yes, moving on, I think this would be a perfect time, Alex, for you to share some of your recent discoveries that you're sampling and trying out.
Yes, parfum violet parfum like Henna. I bought a discovery set from Miskeo, and just as I tried, since there was also a flash sale, I bought a full bottle of Broom, which was my favorite. And tonight I'm wearing Pistil. Pistil is another fragrance which is more or less in the vein of Purple d'Automne, which we were speaking earlier. And it's a fragrance that if you passed me a blotter with the fragrance on and told me it was a vintage Guerlain, I would believe you. It's now we are in the dry down, and the floral part is mixing with cedar wood, which is Atlas cedar, so it's creamy, more in the more akin to sandalwood than to the pencil shading Virginia cedar. And there's this interplay between the violet, which is very prominent, and jasmine, a touch of lavender, especially in the opening. It's very noticeable. And there is this touch of artemisia, wormwood, which gives an anisic touch, little anisic touch, which is very beautiful. I don't know, maybe we are circling back to the early 20th century, because Purple d'Automne and also Pistil are very much in the vein of Après l'Ondeur, L'Heure Bleue, those kind of vintage guirlands.
I think Monsieur Parfums is a house to look out for. I think that I was really impressed with the samples that I've tried.
And she managed, because she's a woman, the perfumer, and she managed to make fragrances that are deeply rooted in the tradition, but also modern, without covering them with sweetness. They have just, for example, here in Pistil, there's just a touch of sweetness from the flowers, from the floral part. Nothing else. Nothing else. Broom has no touch of sweetness. Daim is a leather, slightly animalic fragrance, which has a touch of warmth, but not really sweetness. There's no ethyl maltol in sight. And that's a beautiful thing for me. Because
very well. It sounds like you don't like sweet fragrances very much.
No, not at all.
I don't either, because they just seem to get sweeter and sweeter on me. So it's like they never end.
No, on my skin is the contrary. I'm blessed with a skin chemistry that kills completely sweetness in about 10 minutes. So what I smell is what is covered behind, what they have tried to hide behind buckets of ethyl maltol, and usually it's crap. So I like more bitter fragrances.
I love bitter and green and crunchy and skinny and leafy. Love it.
Especially the bitterness from the herbal notes when rosemary or tarragon. Tarragon is another herb that can give a slightly licoricey, anisey.
Yeah. It does have a high anethol content in it, like anise. Yeah, I love the smell of tarragon because it bridges some of those leafy herbal scents with like the anisic tones. It's great stuff.
Yeah, but it has also a very bitter base. Also, thyme is very aromatic, but also it has its bitterness.
Yeah, it's bitter, but it also has like this interesting, almost musky undertone to it. Like not quite musky, like not animalic musk, but just like this dense, like musky. It's like a kind of like adjacent to like maybe like angelica root almost. Like I can imagine in a composition, thyme and angelica root together would be really good. Like pairing the two together. So at this time it's 8:18 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to revisit the three first impressions to see how things are going on my skin. So first one is the Legalian Special for Gentlemen, which it's really vibrant. It's really vibrant on the skin for like it's for a citrus tea fougere. It's definitely not too similar to Jicky or Mouchoir de Monsieur. Like there is sort of like a modern feel to it that is actually interesting to me. Like I'm not always looking for something that is a classical kind of style in a fragrance. So I like that it's sort of like a modern interpretation of it. So that one I'm still into it. I want to give it a few more test runs and see how I feel about it. Next is the one that I know nothing of, which is the Bohemian by Arte Perfumi on this hand right here. Really, it's really bizarre, and I almost kind of feel like there might be thyme in this, like red thyme. Like it's really, they got that punchy kind of like you could, you know, clean porcelain with this stuff. It's like pretty hardcore. I know, and it's like, what?
That doesn't sound good.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like an uncertain. Now, this one's kind of like, I like the opening a little bit more so. Now it's getting kind of like 7th generation cleaner kind of on my skin, like you know, the natural brands like that have like the red thyme in it. It's kind of feeling like that, and I don't know if I want to smell like that. And then lastly,
we are all here for that. We are all here for Ming the Dynasty.
You're only for the Ming the Dynasty. It's kind of like an animalic musky powderiness. It's kind of like, I dig it. It's nothing really like that unique, but it's not heinous. It's not atrocious. I like it.
Something in the...
That's faint praise there. That's faint praise. It's not atrocious.
Yeah.
It's not atrocious. No, it's good. It's good. I like it. It's actually singing on my skin more than the other two. Like, it's like I keep getting distracted. Like, It's like kind of like the combination of the Special for Gentlemen and the Ming Dynasty. Like, they would make for good layering, because for what lacks in Special for Gentlemen, which I think, you know, could be a little bit more of a backbone in it, it's like being made up for in the Ming Dynasty. So that's my update on this.
And compared to aromatic elixirs, since I think there's a muskiness, there's an animalic touch in that one too.
Oh yeah, I mean there is like, yeah, totally, like, yeah, there's an animalic touch for sure. Like,
but since they might have a similar vintage feel, I thought maybe there's some similarities.
Yeah. But it does still feel like it came out, like, I don't know. Now it feels more like it actually, now in the dry down, it smells more like it came out like in the mid 70s to early 80s. That's about right. The opening was a lot more like cosmetic powdery, kind of like a 60s, you know, powdery, ambery kind of scent. I think that the two that are in the running, the Bohemian really is not winning me over now. It's between the Ming Dynasty and the Special for Gentlemen. Watch, Ming Dynasty will end up winning. Okay. All right. So moving right along. At this point, I think what we will want to do is we're going to just start talking about notes that at one point we had an affinity for, but we've kind of run out, you know, fallen out of love with them. That we're just kind of like, yeah, it's getting kind of tired, or it just doesn't really feel good anymore, or it's downright grating at this point. So why don't we chat a little bit about that? Henna, I'll start with you.
I don't know, maybe the rose note. I feel like I have so many rose perfumes that's not something that I'm now wowed by, or that I want more of, or that I need to experience. Like, I'm pretty sure I have enough. So that is, and it's not even like I'm out of, like, I still love that note, but I just am not looking for more, I guess.
We have a question for you. I know it doesn't really run in line with what we're discussing right now, but what is your favorite fragrance that is marketed to men?
Yeah, I would say maybe Equipage Geranium.
Wonderful stuff. Well, look at this.
Yeah.
Big old echo chamber right here. We're all bravo. Lovely.
Pick the right one.
Yeah.
I mean, I just bought a bottle so recently, right? So that's like fresh in my head. I still love it. I, you know, really liked it over the summer. So yeah, that would be my pick right now.
Also, you might want to try Geranium pour Monsieur by Frédéric Malle. They don't smell alike, but if you like one, the odds are
like
that
the
you
other.
might like the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, I'll have to smell that.
I think some of my it's funny that we're talking about geranium, because geranium is talking about adjacency. Geranium is adjacent to rose, sort of on the perfumer's wheel. They're not the same, obviously, but
Yeah.
they both share geraniol and some other things in their chemical makeup that make them rosy. So some of my favorite rose scents actually have a good amount of geranium as well. So it must be like I like geraniol heavy rose. So maybe that's the direction you're going. You're like, maybe not so much rose, like rose, but like a geranium kind of vibe. Are you a fan of Lafite Berlin?
Yes.
Because that is, to me, like a more like rose and geranium rather than just like straight
I would
up
agree
rose.
with that.
Yeah.
I don't even have a rose perfume in my, like, that I've pulled out, even that's in my rotation right now, which is pretty rare. Like, I always have a rose in my rotation, but not these days.
Yeah, I love rose, but there are times where it's just I have to be in the mood for it.
Yeah.
It's definitely it has a strong character. When you have a very rosy scent, you definitely have to be in the right frame of mind. So it's not always like that. Sometimes rose is just a little too much. Alex, how about for you? What was a note that you used to really dig, and it just isn't working out anymore for you?
It's not that they don't work anymore for me, but I don't like the direction in which lavender and sandalwood are used in more recent releases. I mean, I'm attached to some of the fragrances of my youth, so mid-80s, and lavender and sandalwood. I mean, Rockford. I mean, Egoist, for example. I mean, also a bit Rouge, Pour un homme de Caron, Dakar Noir. I think lavender in more recent releases smells a little like the candied version of it.
Yeah.
And sandalwood has always been a creamier wood, but now it's milky. It's too much for me. I mean, it's too smooth. That's not, I think, the role that the wood should have in a fragrance. The wood should provide the base, some strength, some lasting power. Smoothness must be provided by something else. I mean, I don't know if it's clear how I explained it, but I mean, it's not that I dislike or I'm tired, I grew tired or sick of lavender or sandalwood, but as they are used now, I don't particularly like.
So just like the modern approach of pairing lavender with sandalwood and a lot of more recent fragrances.
Yes, no, but also how they are used. I don't know if they have changed the lavender the absolute they use, because lavender seems too sweet. It's not that sharp, soapy lavender that was used in the 80s. I don't know if it was something else that that matched lavender so beautifully, and now it's not. Maybe Akmos, I don't know. And so,
I think that lavender has been there's now what I call like sort of like a reductive lavender. It's kind of like or I also call it soft soap lavender, where it's like linalool acetate, which is like a large quantity of that is in lavender with like a bunch of tonka, and that's the lavender. And a lot of the things that make lavender are not even there because maybe they'd smell too herbal or too, floral for some people, because people love sweet. So they take those elements and make that lavender accord out of it. And then, I think the sandalwood accords, some of them are just so cheap. So if you got that on the top,
exactly.
And then it dries down to the sandalwood.
That was what I was thinking, because since there's a shortage in supply of Mysore sandalwood, the original Indian one, and Javanol seems too expensive. Because Javanol by Firmenich or Givaudan, I don't remember. That's a very good sandalwood, synthetic sandalwood. But it's extremely expensive. I smelled a couple of fragrances with Javanol, and it was pretty convincing.
And a little goes a long way. Javanol is one of the most high impact sandalwood materials. So it's expensive, but it packs a punch. And I can pick it up pretty well now when I smelled in a fragrance. It doesn't distract me in picking it up, but it's a sign that there was some money put into the composition, because it's expensive by per milliliter. It's pretty expensive for an aroma chem or a base. So it's good stuff.
One of the fragrances was Santal du Pacifique by Paris Monte Carlo, which is a fragrance that I highly recommend you to try. It's really beautiful, and it's sandalwood is not a note when it's dominant, like in that fragrance. It's not a note that you normally associate with warm weather or with summer, but that works really well in summer too. It's really versatile. It's really versatile and really beautiful. I think Margie bought it. And she was pretty satisfied.
And Paris Monte Carlo is a house that I have not really explored. I always end up getting it confused with Memo, because they both have these like tall bottles, but apparently it's a lot better than Memo.
No, they're sister brand to Houbigant.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Enough said.
I have Cacao Aztec, which is really a tuberose fragrance, and I think is lovely. It's like tuberose spices and like non-sweet cacao in the base. Is really, really quite an interesting fragrance. Paris Monte Carlo has some nice stuff.
Yeah, I've wanted to try the sandalwood, and then the one with there's Nosy Bee.
Nosy Bee.
Yeah, because I've been looking for like some more Ylang Ylang scents.
No, Patchouli Nosy Bee. Ylang Ylang.
I know Nosy Bee refers to the Ylang Ylang though.
But there's another which has Ylang Ylang. And then they make a Neroli Mediterraneo. Absolutely the best Neroli I ever smelled.
So Fernando asks here, vanilla, the overuse of vanilla, and wanted to inquire as if I agree, and I agree. I mean, it goes in line with the current and tastes of having something sweet and vanillic, a gourmand, and a gourmand always is going to have a huge slug of vanillin in it, and I think that it's hard. Like, I'm really picky about my vanillas, and it's funny that like some of my favorite vanillas are kind of cheapies. They're not even like they're not even like the expensive ones. They're the ones that are not trying too hard to be anything but like a good vanilla kind of ambery scent. But yeah, I would say so. What do you folks think about the usage of vanilla? Do you think it's a little too much in some fragrances? What do you think, Henna?
When
I don't know. I feel like I avoid a lot of vanilla. So
Yeah, because you're not really like into the sweet anyways, and
no,
vanilla's
I'm
off.
not.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
because of that, the ones that I do have that happen to have vanilla, I really enjoy. So I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's necessary. Like vanilla when it's there, it's like I never had that. I mean, it's it does us a disservice to look at a notes pyramid and see a note and think, oh, I'm not going to like it because it's there.
Yeah.
But vanilla, when it's there and you know it's not a very vanillic scent, you know that it's like a really good blender in the whole composition. It's doing something that really
Yeah.
gives it some interest in the composition. Obviously, it's needed for ambers. It wouldn't really be
Yeah.
the same without some vanilla in it. But yeah, even with something like, take for example, ambers. A lot of the newer ambers are much more vanillic than they are resinous, and it's kind of like not really the amber as I associated. I think of like things like Angel Share from by Killian. Like,
Yeah.
holy Moses, that's like, I feel like I'd get a cavity wearing that. It's so sweet.
That's
So.
very sweet.
I'm actually surprised you even know what that is, JJ. That seems like so completely like someone like mistakenly put it in your sample pack. Like, how do you even know what that is?
It ended up mistakenly in a sample pack,
Yeah.
along with like It was like the same sample pack that had like Montal red tobacco. I was what fresh hell is all of this that I'm smelling? Like one thing after another. It was like a sample pack of. It was pretty much like the greatest hits of the most atrocious fragrances in the world, and those were two of them that were in it. There were like a few others where it's like, good God, this is ghastly.
Yeah.
I don't want to offend people. I'm so opinionated, but those two I was not too pleased with. So Ryan, a note that you used to like a lot, but now it's not them, it's you. You had to kind of like break it to them gently.
I went through a sandalwood phase. Alex jogged my memory about like my sandalwood phase where I was going out and like out that fine Mysore sandalwood like craze that I went on for a little bit, and now I'm kind of completely over it. So all my sandalwood dominant fragrances are now out of my collection. But there was a phase where I kind of went all in on high grade sandalwood for a little bit, and I think it is a lovely note. It just sort of lost its charm as a dominant player for me. I appreciate what it brings to a composition, particularly some lovely vintages where it plays a very key role. But I think, that doesn't, and I kind of have felt the same way about, God forbid, patchouli a little bit. Like patchouli as like a star player for me. Patchouli is an essential perfume ingredient. You don't really get away from patchouli very easily, but I'm not really into patchouli dominant fragrances. And finally, vetiver also has lost a bit of its charm for me, which is to say, I love vetiver. I'm never getting rid of my Guerlain vetivers ever.
But that's like an entity unto its own, though, because that's also vetiver and tobacco and a whole other bunch of good stuff. It's like it's more than vetiver. Yeah,
it is more than vetiver, and so like I would never get rid of that fragrance. That's lovely to me, but a lot of the more pure vetivers, and in general, and I don't want to besmirch some of the very high-end vetiver fragrances. There are a lot of lovely high-quality vetivers, but like there is a kind of mid-tier grade vetiver that gets used a lot in designer and niche fragrances as like a component that is just so boring to me, because it's just such this monotonous greenish hum in a fragrance that just cuts through it. I don't even like the vetiver in Towers L'air du Désert Moroccan. I don't love the vetiver in there. I wish it wasn't in there.
I don't even smell it.
It cuts through like a laser through.
Vetiver is a very vertical note in a pyramid. In a notes pyramid. I mean, you can smell it from the beginning to the end, like tuberose in the feminine fragrances.
Yeah.
That's they are if they are not well balanced. That's more or less all you can smell in a fragrance.
Do you think
If you
sometimes?
go,
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Do you think sometimes you get hypersensitive to a note and then you start disliking it? Like once you can
Totally.
identify it
Yeah.
in so many things, you're just over it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I think it's particular. It's especially. I'm especially sensitive to some of like the particular. I don't know, JJ. You could speak to this a little bit more clearly, but like the isolates are like molecule versions of some of these notes that are reduced down to like a very narrow range of what they are.
Yeah.
And instead of like fuller bodied takes on it, and I think this happens with vanilla too. So we were talking about vanilla being overused, right? And one of the things that Guerlain has always done is like Guerlain has said that their secret for their vanillin was that they've left a lot of impurities in their vanillin. So when they source vanillin, it's different than a lot of the staple vanillas used by other houses because they try to keep those impurities in. And I think that adds a lot of weight to the way Guerlain uses vanilla as opposed to vanilla in like something like, God forbid, like Versace Eros or something like that. That is just
Or
going
angel share. Let's
Or
just
angel share, yes.
or
yeah, but vanilla is another extremely expensive material. So I suspect that into angel share or even more so Versace Eros, there is not a lot of real vanilla, but it's a really cheap synthetic kind of vanillin. I think
guarantee you there's no real vanilla in that. There's very little real vanilla in most fragrances. It's just so expensive.
It is.
Yes, but vanilla, incidentally, both for its price and its scarce availability has been, correct me if I'm wrong, JJ, one of the first synthetic creations. Vanillin was one of the first.
Vanillin was one of the first. Coumarin, alpha ianone was another one of the first. Those were the earliest ones. But yeah, truthfully, most vanilla that you smell is vanillin or its more a bombastic counterpart, ethyl vanillin, which ethyl vanillin was wonderfully used in Henna's favorite Shalimar, which is like, that's probably but it isn't. It's famous for being used in Shalimar, but it's also famous for being used in like Angel and famous for being used in Angel Share, probably. Like it and a lot of it's powerful. I do think that there are some fragrances where I swear there is a little smidgen of vanilla absolute. Like fairly certain there's probably some in Vanille Havane from Les Indomadables has some vanilla absolute that has been built upon with, you know, the vanillin, because if they use all vanilla absolute, that would be prohibitively expensive. But there is some, I mean, that color, that unfiltered dark color, I mean, that's telltale. Another one where I could swear, even though like I want to believe it because it really does smell like it, and it's another favorite of both Ryan and I, is like Le Parfum by Lalique. I mean, it's a budget fragrance, but I could swear to God it smells so much like there's actual vanilla absolute. I mean, the stuff turns brown. Like I could swear it's just there's such a high vanilla or at least like a vanillin content.
There's something in there that is giving it that heft. It's gotta be
like that bourbon vanilla kind of, I mean, think about something like that's like so literal, like also like spiritus.
Double vanilla.
Yes, thank you. That has some real vanilla as well, but it's almost like that to me is like you're basically wearing a perfume version of like tinctured vanilla. Like it's like vanilla extract, which is just too much for me to handle. There's nothing else to kind of like pull it elsewhere. It's like I don't really like it when it's just literal.
You know, Ryan, what they were saying over the pandemic, when people were in lockdown, they were trying to make their own vanilla extract by like soaking vanilla beans in vodka, right? And then people were saying, like, actually, it's better just to buy the extract from wherever because they mix a whole bunch of different kinds of vanilla. So you're getting a more interesting flavor profile than if you're trying to make it at home yourself with like whatever one kind of vanilla bean you can find. You know what I mean? So I think like there is something to that notion of the impurities or like, you know, different batches all coming together, and it just like makes it more interesting probably.
It is. And I think one thing that, so my wife at one point in time went out of her way to order a bunch of different vanilla extracts from different types, like, you know, Tahitian vanilla, Mexican vanilla, all these sort of different vanilla extracts. And when you smelled them, they were so distinct and so very different from one another that you wouldn't confuse them. That it was very interesting. And then I was able to kind of start picking that up when I could recognize like different versions of that profile that perfumers had tried to create, depending on which one they were going after. I would say, so on the same note though, I feel like, so I love a very high quality tonka note. Tonka is another note that can be very rich and interesting, and it can also be like the most boring, tedious, persistent base of all perfumery today. Like, part of me runs for the hills now when I start to see tonka listed in a fragrance. I just have bad associations with what that dry down is going to be. And then sometimes a very high quality tonka note is very lovely with those hay-like qualities that can be brought out of it and all sorts of interesting facets.
That makes for a magnificent segue because Tammy has a question about Guerlain's Millésime Tonka. Has anyone tried this? Obviously, Henna. I think this is a flanker.
I thought about buying a bottle just to resell it because I knew that people were, you know, trying to get their hands on it.
Yeah,
Is this the Shalimar Tonka we're talking about? It's
a Shalimar flanker. Yeah, I have not tried it. I have not tried any Shalimar flanker. I just like Shalimar. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I just don't need to.
We have talked about this I think where I'm trying to get somebody to sell me their Sur la Route Madagascar version of the Shalimar flankers. It was like a few versions ago.
Yeah.
Vanilla Centifolia.
It wasn't even that one, but like, yeah, it was the Sur la Route Madagascar one.
Okay.
Is so somebody generously who owned a bunch of them gave me a few different samples of the flankers, and that was the one that I thought of all the versions of Shalimar I've ever tried, that was my favorite version of Shalimar. They're not very far off from what you would recognize as Shalimar. So if you hate Shalimar, you're still going to hate these. But it had such a lovely emphasis on the citrus. Like one of the versions of Shalimar that I did like is the Eau de Cologne version, which has a lot of emphasis on the citrus. It's a airier. Yes. It gets to the leather faster, so it's a little less heavy on these sort of like, the Eau de Parfum gets very heavy and very heady for me and is a tough wear for me, which is why I go for like the Eau de Toilette or the Eau de Cologne. And the Sur la Route Madagascar is kind of like the highest grade version of that.
Same here. I have the Eau de Cologne, I have the Eau de Toilette, but I don't have the Eau de Parfum. I know that that's what Shalimar should be, but it's too ambery for me. Too heavy amber.
It's Headache City, really. It's kind of like, you gotta, it's intense. Like
I somehow lavish in it. I don't know what it is about it, but I love it in the winter. Love it.
I mean, Amber Sultan is an easier wear for me.
I could see that. Yeah. Amber Sultan has a savoriness to it too. Like it's like there is breathing between the notes as well. It's like, I love the fact that oregano is used in that. Like the oregano is like the umami to the sweet of the amber accord. It's really nice.
Yes, because I think the most beautiful thing in Amber Sultan is the bitterness of the herbs, which comes in waves across the mid part of the fragrance, and I think it's my favorite part.
Mr. Clean makes a good point here. Artists will say there is no such thing as a bad color. It's how you use it that matters. Same with perfume notes. So I'm in agreement with that. As far as like a note, I think I can appreciate pretty much any note in a fragrance. It's just a matter of context. You know, the context is so important, where it falls into, you know, the whole discrete composition, you know, whether it's like front and center or if it's like taking some sort of supportive role. My note that I used to be so excited about all the time, and I've really grown wary of, and it may come as no surprise, is oud. I have a tough time with it. I have probably the fewest amount of, like, I could barely do, you know how I do like theme weeks on Instagram, like I struggled to do an oud week, and a couple of them were like barely even oud fragrances. They just had an oud note. Like Alud, I mean, it is an oud fragrance, but it is my favorite interpretation of oud because it avoids some of those, I don't know, the cliched idea of what an oud fragrance should be in a modern perfume. But I hate the ones that have these bases that just smell like either like burning electronics or, you know, overly cheesy, overly I don't know, like fake incensey. Not, you know, there's just so many things about these oud bases that I just grew really tired of, and it's just so surprising to me that like Guerlain is still releasing ouds. Like there's new oud fragrances still coming out after like how many years has this been a fixture in fragrance? What's that?
Guerlain did a nude in their exquisite collection now.
Yeah.
I don't think they're ever going to stop, right?
I don't know. Maybe it's just a permanent fixture. It's not like,
I think it's just like part of the, you know, range of ingredients that they can use now.
Yeah. I think I just kind of grown a little tired of it. It's just, I just don't feel it. I don't feel it the way I see. Although rose and oud, I did kind of like that kind of combination. Ryan, you did a recent video where you featured a few of those, and some of those I really do actually appreciate. So I can appreciate that combination a little bit more. So that's mine. You know, not as crazy about it as it used to be.
I understand.
Oud is strange because as soon as it became popular, there was a rush to mix it with something to tone it down, rose, saffron, and many other things. So I think oud, I mean, a note smells like that. Leave it like that. Leave it natural, like Dusita Oud Infini. That's oud. I mean, it smells like that, like tobacco, as we were discussing earlier. Tobacco is not sweet. Tobacco is herbal. It's almost a hay smell or slightly smoky. Leave it like that. Coffee is extremely bitter. Leave it like that.
Right.
I agree. I think, you know, but I think the problem, I understand what Jada is saying exactly. Like oud in the like oud wood, like kind of like dry, scratchy, like big woodiness is frustrating because it's just this very like persistent hum. right? Like in the base of something. It's just kind of like scratch. It's like a very like persistent hum, and then it like lingers on your skin long after everything else is gone.
I don't like that. It scares me. It scares me. Like when it's a skin scent, but it's a skin scent that still has this persistent hum, and it's really one-dimensional. It's just this. It's like the things like the Nordlimbinol and the Ambrosinide and the Timber Silk and the Timberol, all these different things. And it just is so two-dimensional, and it just lingers. It's like the development curve for Lum. If you were to draw like sort of like a line graph kind of thing, a lot of these fragrances, they have this development curve where there's so much going on for like the first hour, maybe 2 at most. And then it's just for hours on end. It's just that for hours and hours. It's just, and then it's hard to clean it off. Like, have you guys like tried some fragrances and it's like you've taken a shower and you're like, oh my God, that is still there. Like it's powerful stuff.
Many times.
Yes, especially in the 80s. It was 2 days and 4 showers to wash away Koros.
Today's Koros is easily cleansed away. Is that what you're saying, Alex? It used to be that.
I mean, it's not as powerful as it was. It's not as animalic as it was. I think it's still a beautiful fragrance, still recognizable as Koros, but it has been toned down. Not for the best, but at least with respect to the original fragrance.
Right.
Some respect, at least.
Yeah. Just catching up with some of the chat here. I left some folks behind for like 20 minutes. So I'm just highlighting some of them. Are you folks able to see the chat on your end?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. I'm glad that you are able to see the running chat. Do we have a wait? This is like synthetic. It's really the synthetic ouds. It's not actual oud that I like. Oud attars or something altogether different. Like, or agarwood, like, burning the agarwood chips and seeing like the exudate come out of the wood. Like that's like a whole other experience. It's just, I think a lot of the oud fragrances that have like the same like IFF bases and Givaudan bases, and it's like, there you go again. This is your oud. Here you go. It's on a platter, and it's going to be on your skin forever. But actual oud itself, like I really do enjoy, burning agarwood is the best out of all of it. It smells like that cannot be captured in a fragrance. I've never smelled a fragrance where that experience is captured. So, and I don't quite like it.
And real oud. So, obviously people go on the oud fans are like a whole different segment of the fragrance community, like the real oud obsessives. But real oud is a very interesting ingredient given how diverse it can smell and how rich it can smell when used as an actual perfume base. That's how I have a few things that do use real oud as like a base element. Yeah. It's like instant depth for your fragrance when you use it, because it's just like got so much character unto itself that it's very easy to just sort of like layer things on it that bring out certain facets in it, and then you have a very complex perfume just right out of the gate. It's right. Do all these tricks. It's a nice element.
Yeah. So I wanted to answer Nikki's question here. I am familiar with the oud olfactory. I think that is a really good one. The problem is I think it might be a little bit overused in certain perfumes, but in and of itself, in isolation, it's a really well done approximation of an oud attar. I think that just sometimes it's just so overdone. It's just a high percentage of it. It drowns out everything else. But if it's used judiciously by a perfumer, I think it's great. Let's see. And Mr. Clean says, so you're speaking on conversation in the chat. Fernando agreeing completely. Let them carry on. Just catching up here. All right. Almost caught up here. Good evening. Okay. I'm all caught up. Here's the most recent message in the chat. Good evening, Dan Smith. Thank you for joining. We appreciate your stopping by. Yeah, overuse, definitely. So the time is now 9. We usually kind of have things run over for a little bit with some free-form conversation. What are some other things on your mind? Henna, I want to bring it back to you as our special guest this evening. What else has been going on? Your thoughts on...
Were you going to talk about what things you might have bought recently?
Oh yeah, that's right. Thank you for reminding me. That was my sort of twist on that, because I didn't actually have things that I was like in the midst of
sample, and then what actually ended up happening.
What transpired in the past few weeks where I got a full bottle. I have 3. Thank you for reminding me of that. And they're actually...
I'll go first.
I bought
Santal Majuscule by Serge Lutens. And I sampled it over the summer, so probably in June, I want to say, and finished my sample, kind of just let it go, and I loved it, but I just didn't buy it at the time, and then I really started missing it in the fall, so I ended up getting that. That was my most recent buy.
Well, I approve of that. That gets my approval. I think it's quite lovely, and it is an example of a cacao note that I can get into. And
see, normally I would never go for a cacao fragrance, but it just happens to be there, and it works so well. Lends like a dryness.
Yeah, it's like a cacao that isn't too sweet. It has like the more bitter qualities of it. Yeah. Love that one. Yeah, very nice. Cool.
Yeah, I smell a touch of nuttiness. Probably is the cocoa note. That's and then that's this rose that becomes very prominent in the art of the fragrance. But it's dark rose. It's not.
It is. Yeah.
And those elements don't take over. It's just so balanced in that fragrance. Nothing, there's no like competition between these notes. It's just so...
It's very smooth and creamy and just really chill perfume, right? Yeah.
And that's a beautiful sandalwood.
Yeah.
That goes in the opposite direction. Not creamy, but very dry.
Yeah.
To my nose, it's very dry.
Do you have any others, Henna? That's
just
it?
That one.
Okay.
Just one.
Just one for now. Brian, how about a recent acquisition after hemming and hawing and figuring out, do I want more of this?
Oh, sure. So obviously you were the devil on my shoulder about Bois.
Yes.
We'll just pass by this lovely fragrance, but JJ found one for me on eBay and I snagged it. So that's absolutely spectacular fragrance. But one that I did purchase recently, I did talk about this on my channel recently. Perfume Calligraphy by Aramis. Which is kind of like the forgotten entry in the Perfume Calligraphy trio. I think it's lovely. It is... I don't know how to reconcile myself to it because it is kind of transparently synthetic, but in a way that I really love, and I don't know how else to describe it. Just kind of a very beautiful, interesting take on the fragrance. This sort of like rosy oud genre that doesn't no other perfume has done this structure in the same way. So it's very unique, very interesting, very easy to wear. And then finally, I don't think I've talked about this one on any of our live streams, JJ, but I did pick up Laboratorio Olfativo Vanagloria, which is a Dominique Ropion fragrance that he produced for them. And it's a very interesting take, since we were talking about it, on vanilla, which Ropion made with a very, they did some unique CO2 extraction process on vanilla. So it's very much a very like raw, sort of like woody vanilla smell that's kind of different. It's different. When I first smelled it, I was like, this is kind of very earthy and unusual in an interesting way. It's a very good perfume. It's sweet. It does get sweet, but it does have a lot of interesting earthy, dry, almost tobacco-y tones in the way that it kind of develops.
That does sound interesting. I haven't tried anything from that house, but I've seen it come up now and then. That one in particular, yeah.
I'm a big Rokion fan, so I tend to pay attention to what he's doing.
Right. Very cool. Alex, how about you?
Well, speaking of sweet and delicate fragrances, I picked up Guerlain Cuir Intense, which what's that? Which I think is
sorry for the interruption, Alex. Did we lose him?
He looks frozen.
No. Oh no! I lost the connection for a second.
Okay.
I mean, Cuir Intense by Guerlain. I think if Frank Castle had the signature scent, that would be it. It's extreme, totally extreme. It's dark, it's leather, tobacco. I smell also a touch of incense. But probably it's the smokiness that gives almost an incensey vibe. Oh, it's really punishing. The leather, how I like it. Really beastly. Then I picked up Nishané Sultan Vetiver, which is an interesting take on vetiver with some balsamic notes, a good touch of Artemisia in the opening, and every possible different kind of vetiver on earth is into that. But it's an interesting fragrance. And then Broom by Miskeo.
Oh, right.
I tested it. That was then they had the flash sale with 20% off. Plus they gave you samples of the original extracts. I have the lavender and the mastic. And Broom is a softer, definitely softer take on vetiver compared to Sultan Vetiver. It's very nice. It's very soft, enveloping, almost misty. It's Broom means mist in French, so it's really photorealistic. It's like taking a stroll in a meadow, in a wood. In those early spring or early fall mornings when you have the fog rising from the soil, and you have that just 1 meter off the ground of this kind of mist. It's a beautiful fragrance, very evocative.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Nice.
For exactly, the reason that you described, it really does smell like that, like taking that walk. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.
How about you, JJ? Did you smell anything to say?
I have 3 here. Of course, I have 3. One of which I went full bottle after doing a sampling of it doing a first impression on a previous live stream, and it is the Histoire de Parfum 1828 Jules Verne.
Oh, I like that one.
Beautiful.
I like
beautiful, fantastic.
Yeah, and it is. a bit barbershoppy, and I like my barbershoppy stuff. But it is a great nutmeg, and it has this eucalyptus in it as well. So there's a bracing quality to it, and it dries down really wonderfully, and it performs well for people who care. It has good performance. There seemed to be this belief. I don't know that it didn't perform that well, but it's great on my skin.
It performs well for me too. It's a very I liked that. That was one of my favorites when I sampled the core line. I know there's been a lot of things that Histoire Parfum has released that I haven't tried, but that one was a very nice, just like really rich, spicy green experience. It was very fun. Yeah.
It's great. It's great. Yeah, that was this is the only full bottle that resulted from the first impressions exercise so far. Everything else has been sort of like, yeah, that one, but I'm not going to get a full bottle. This is the one that resulted in a full bottle.
Wait. When we receive my samples, you'll go full bottle immediately. Quit one.
Which brings me to a current full bottle from Anatole Le Breton, which is a recent acquisition, which is Bois Lumière from Anatole Le Breton, which is such a good honey scent. And actually, I think it's more like a honey beeswax scent. Should do a review on this soon.
I do love a good honey beeswax thing. It's a very, it's not, I would assume, knowing your taste, is not a very aggressively sweet honey.
No, this is not sweet. This is animalic. This is like perspiration, animalic, waxy. I'm not going to say it's like, it smells like pee, but there is like a little bit of a urinous quality, which comes from honey, and beeswax will have a little bit of that quality. You're not going to smell like pee. Just saying, there's a little bit of touch, a little teeny bit of it there. But more so, the waxy quality really stands out in this. And it like when I wear this, it smells like you're burning like these beeswax candles in like this space that smells woody and ancient. That's all. It's one of those like transportive kind of fragrances. Like it's just really impressive. And
sounds lovely.
I love it. It's not for the faint of heart. This is not your, mainstream honey fragrance, not sweet honey fragrance. It's not like, wear it and go and forget about it. Not a dumb reach. This is one where you got to find the right, you got to be in the mood. And you got to prime yourself for it, and then you just take it in and you experience it. Maybe you can, you wear a little bit of it under your shirt, and you go to like the library, or bookstore, get a cup of tea, go, meet with a friend. It can be sexy too, I think, if you wear it in the right way. It can be kind of like a date fragrance if it's not a first date though. Get to know the person, see how they feel about fragrance, and if they're into it, third, fourth date, maybe. So that's the second one.
Yeah, from the note spec down, that had your name written all over. I mean, beeswax, carnation, immortal. It's everything.
It's everything.
I love Immortel. Can I just say that?
Love it.
We'll talk about notes that we love. Immortel is just, I can't get enough of that.
I love it. Immortel, to me, it smells like meadows under the sun and fenugreek, and it's just like it has this sort of like, it's not a syrupy quality because that sounds like it would be sweet, but just like it's tacky. Not tacky as in like, oh my God, you're wearing such a tacky dress or a tacky hat, but tacky, like it just sticky. Has that, sticky, and it feels like that. And it's just, it's one of my favorite notes. Immortel is. I can do a whole Immortel week as well. That's how many I have.
You should.
You did that.
and so, go ahead, Alex.
Did I? I didn't do a whole Immortel week before, did I? No.
I think so.
Really?
I don't know if I did. I think I've featured fragrances with Immortelle. Hell, I'll just do another one because I probably have a couple more from the last time I did. This is my third one. And this doesn't have Immortelle, but this is definitely an outdoorsy kind of scent. This is from Joram Studio, and it is Arborist.
Okay.
This is a heavy hitter.
I told you about that one. That one's
You
great.
did. Yes, this is your recommendation. This smells like all of the foresty, woody things that they never put in fragrances. It's all here. And there is this oily, petrol-y, I think you told me about this, Ryan, when you were first mentioning that's here, that it's kind of, it reminds me of like the smell of oil that comes off of like what do you call it? I'm having a brain F right now. I was going to say the word, but it's kind of a gross word. But I'm having kind of like a brain freeze where I'm thinking of a chainsaw. Think of chainsaws, tractors, train saws, something gingery like ginger beer, all kinds of interesting things. Like pine, like when you crush like the coniferous needles and you don't get sort of like that piney scent. It's like the other aspect of conifers that you don't get in a lot of coniferous scents. It's here. The cypriol is really interesting too, because I feel like the cypriol in it brings into relief some of those qualities of sappy, woody plants and trees and stuff. Lovely stuff. I wish the dry down was a little different. That's the only thing that I'm like not 100% on, but I don't feel like I waste my money. I love it. 95% love it. Arborist.
Okay. I'll take it.
No, 95%. Hey, I freaking love like the first several hours of it. It's just in the dry down. It's kind of like, okay, I'm all done. Time to put something else on. It's great.
I understand. I understand why you would say that. I think it's so rare to find a foresty fragrance like this that captures this kind of profile. I think I immediately smelled it and I was like, oh, this is something that I've always wanted and haven't been able to find yet.
I might turn around and not care about the dry down because like I've only worn it like after sampling it. I've only, worn it full-fledged from this bottle like a couple of times. But yeah, I definitely don't regret it. I really enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to doing a proper review of it. So I'm very pleased with this. So thank you for the recommendation. I like Arborist a lot.
I need to try more from that house.
Yeah, me too. I'm curious about some of the other stuff. Have you, Alex, Hannah, have you tried anything from Joram Studios?
No,
I got a couple decants. I got 3 decants a couple weeks ago or last week, maybe I got them. And I got, what's it? Timorous? That's the Oris one.
Yeah, yeah.
So that one I liked. I need to try it more. And then I got, I can't even remember the other 2 that I got, but I just didn't like them at all. I really didn't like them. I didn't get the one that you have, JJ. I didn't get that. But the 2 others that I got, one was Pentimento. I think I got that one.
Mm.
And one was Firewater.
I have tried Firewater and I do like Firewater, but I like smoky kind of fiery notes.
It was really smoky.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, but the Oris one, I want to try more of. I want to wear it more and see how I like it.
Yeah, all 3 of these are excellent. Like this is the direction that I'm going in as I become far more fastidious about going full bottle. Like far more fastidious. It's like I was just mentioning on a live stream in the chat that like I'm definitely looking to take inventory and cull about like 200 fragrances just so that way like I can move in a different direction and experience new things. Not to replace it with 200 new ones, but just like get rid of the 200, but to just kind of like lighten the load a little bit and just kind of focus in a different direction. And I don't know. I like the direction that I'm going with it. I think that changes, there's changes in your taste and what your expectations are, what you want out of a fragrance. And I feel like this is these are exciting ones.
When you say new direction, what do you mean? I think of you as like a vintage collector at heart.
I was gonna say none of those are vintage or discontinued.
I like vintage, but when I was mentioning earlier about like you kind of come around and you're like, oh, here's another version of that and another version of that. Well, I'm kind of like taking a look at my collection and realizing like I have a lot of versions of the same like spicy woody fougere, and I have a lot of versions of like, you know, the narcotic honeyed, you know, Chypre or something. So it's like, how many of these do I really want to hold on to? So that's part of like the whole project. Like I like being kind of like a curator of my collection, but I don't think, you know, I think that being part of a curator is like narrowing it down to the ones that really highlight the best of the best, you know, for me personally, you know, like I wouldn't prescribe this to other people. Like I'm getting rid of these 5 and you should too. It's just for me personally, what I consider to be the most enjoyable or significant, you know? So I think it's healthy. I'm glad that more people are talking about that too, as far as like collecting and, you know, having a more healthy relationship with it too, you know?
Well, in October, Canada Post had free shipping. You could send like, not for everything, but like on a Tuesday, you could send 2 free parcels out, which really inspired me to sell a lot more because, and I am sure people bought a lot more, but I didn't. So I culled my collection a little bit in the month of October. And then I kind of stopped because I was like, okay, there's no more free shipping. And now I'm just going to live with what I have and enjoy that.
Yeah.
That was kind of a good thing for me to do, right? Like pick 10 things that I don't really need.
Right. Yeah, it's just gonna make for like a good winter project. I have people knocking on my door since they know, like, keep me in mind. Like,
now when I know, I'm like, all right,
going through like Instagram and bookmarking, like which ones you want.
Nuge, I saw you in the chat. I'm sorry I didn't give you a shout out. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Quality versus quantity. Absolutely. So I am at right now about 750 full bottles, which it is a lot, and it's a heavy load, and it's hard to manage, and you can get so overwhelmed where it's like there are days or nights where it's like I don't even know what I want to wear or experience because it's you just get sensory overload. So I've been thinking a lot about that. You know, I'm not going to say that I'm going to sell like 80% of it. Like I'm probably going to have still most of it, but to kind of just shave it off a little bit, because like I said, like there's some things where it's just like they'll be happier with somebody else who maybe loves it versus I like it and I was a completist, you know. It's also, you know, like, and I don't want to you know, point fingers at anybody else and how they collect, but I just did not want to be personally the type of person where it's like I must have, you know, every single fragrance from a certain house or a certain line, because like I know that not all of them are resonating at the same, you know, frequency. You know, not all of them are like loves. There's just no way, you know. So that's part of the process right now. And yeah,
kind of nice to let things go too.
Oh yeah, it is so
it's hard, but it's nice,
relieving to be like, you know, to just, it gives you more space, literally, physically, mentally, gives you more space. So, and I know that I don't have, I mean, like during a recent live, everybody was talking about how much they have. And I was just like, I was floored, like how much more I had than even people I thought had more than me. I'm like, oh my God. It's a lot. It's a lot, but yeah, I'll keep people posted, you know, once I embark in that project, and we'll see what doesn't make, you know, the cutting board and is going to go to another home. Yeah.
So I do have to go.
Yeah. I was about to. This is around the time that I wanted to wrap it up. We do a backstage, but if you have to get going, that's fine. It's basically backstage is when we continue without it being a live stream. So yeah, but if you have to get going, that's fine too.
Okay. Thanks for having me on, and thanks
Of
for the
course.
chat, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you for joining. I'd like to have you back again, in the near future. I want to kind of have people
Absolutely.
come back pretty regularly. So, and thank you folks for tuning in for episode 8. Next week, we will be having Dimi Odorangevier on Instagram from Perth, Australia, talk about an impressive collection. He has a really impressive collection of preserved vintages, and he has pristine and he has formidable knowledge on fragrance, and he's such a delight. He's a good friend, so he'll be joining us next week. Tune in for that. And until then, everybody be well. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
And 1, 2